guys, so after creating all your squares, all the required number of squares and flowers, we now try to connect all the squares. I did not put the flowers, I did not attach the flowers yet to the squares because I want to make sure that I lay out all the squares first and make sure the colors are distributed well. So I lay out all the squares and then I choose the flowers that would look nice on each square. So this is how I chose it to be. Of course, it depends on the colors that you use. These are just random colors that I use from a mandala cake. They're weight category 3, so they're thinner than the usual one that we use, which is category 4. So it's not as big of a square. If you watch my previous video on granny squares, you would know more. Actually, I advise that you watch parts of it in making the squares and the flowers. Okay, so for the front, you will be making 2 panels just like this. One for the right side and one for the left side, okay? And then once you're satisfied with what you see or the way you lay out your flowers and your squares, you can start connecting your squares. And I'll show you the different ways of doing them. Actually, before you connect the squares, you want to attach the flowers that you intend to put on each square that where you want it to, okay? All right. And then I included a diagram, a drawing of how the pattern would be or how you would be laying out your squares for the front and for the back and how you'd be attaching your sleeves, okay? So, but for now, let's work on attaching these flowers to the squares and connecting the squares to each other, okay? Alrighty, so we're back. I'm back. So this is pretty much just a recap of, if you watch my previous videos, this is just a recap of how to attach the flower onto your square, okay? So using the remaining yarn tails in the back, I actually used the 2 of them to make sure that this flower is attached securely onto the square. Here we go. So you just find the center of the square and position your flower the way you want it positioned. Again, you don't want it attached to the square too flat. You want to keep it 3D, but of course it's your choice if you want it flat. So I normally just, hang on, made it too short. Okay. I normally just attach it through the center. So we're not really using so much, or we're not making it flat on the square. And then at the bottom, so it doesn't show over here, because this will be touching your body when you wear the cardigan. You just want to insert your needle just through the next row where your yarn is coming from, and then grab parts of the flower, another part, and do the same thing on this side. So center and maybe parts of each petal. Okay. So even if you're sewing through this layer of the square, you're not able to see, or you're not going to be feeling the stitches that you're making, because it's just a very small stitch, and yet you're able to catch a big part of the flower. Okay, maybe around direction of sewing. I believe this is called the invisible or the blind stitch. So you start at the center and just go around. Oops. through the flower. You don't want to pull it too tight because you don't want to make that square look deformed after attaching your flower, okay? Or whatever decoration you choose to put on it. Okie dokie. I think we've covered all parts. So it's firmly attached, but at the same time, it's not flat, you know? It's still 3D. All right, and then just so we avoid any ugly stitches in the back of the square, I would reinsert my needle in between the square and the flower and secure it in this layer. This is where I hide my lock and hide my yarn. Okay. Okay. And actually, this is also the reason why I chose to use a thinner or a lighter weight of yarn, because with all these flowers and parts of this cardigan, it would be very heavy to wear if it was a heavier type of yarn that we used. So there you go. That's one. That's cute. So I'm going to attach the rest of the flowers. We're going to be using 2, 4, 6, 8 total flowers for the front. I'm still trying to decide if I think I forgot to show this part to you. So the front part, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 layers. 4 layers of squares. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then for the shoulder part, I added 1 layer, a pair of squares. So the front part ends here at the top, and this would be on the shoulder part. And I'm still trying to decide if I should put another flower here, but I'll decide that after I'll decide on that after we've connected the squares, because I want to see how it would look like on my shoulder. Okay. All right, so I'll be back after connecting attaching all the flowers to the squares, and then we'll proceed to attaching or connecting the squares to each other, okay? Okay, so I'm back. This time I'm going to show you how to connect your squares. First, you want to choose which side you want showing on the front, or your right side. I chose this side. So I'm just gonna show you 2 ways of connecting them. One by sewing and one by crocheting. To do the sewing, we're gonna do whip stitching. So what you want to do after choosing the side you want to be the front, you want them facing each other. Okay, so this would be the back, and this would be the back as well. Okay, so the fronts facing each other. You want to align the sides, or the sides you want to connect. Starting from the left, you just want to grab the corners of each square. Let me focus this a little bit more. Oh, and by the way, to connect all the squares, I decided to use a heavier yarn, weight category 4, and in the color of sage. Really up to you what color you want. The only reason why I use a heavier type of yarn is just so it would be, or they would be connected securely or better. Okay, and I just want to emphasize a different color of their connections, or the way they were sewn or crocheted. Okay, let's just leave it like that. Make another one for that corner. Let's see, can you see? Well, let me focus this a little bit more. Okay, so we've done 1. So we're just gonna go through the adjacent, the opposing row, and just continue doing whip stitch each row. until you reach the end. Okay. I think I might have skipped one here. Hang on, sorry. That's too far from each other. It's just so hard to see it just because this side is the side where we closed by crocheting. So it's not as, the rows are not clear as the lower parts here. But that's okay because we will be connecting these parts later on too with other with other squares, I'm sorry. Do this again. Yeah, I surely did skip one. Sorry about that. Just reinsert my yarn here. Okay, so we're doing the next row. And you're not gonna see the pattern of this sewing right away until we've done probably 5 or 6 stitches. There you go, that's better. So just make sure you don't miss any rows and you're going through opposing stitches, okay? So simple as that. I like how, oh, there you go. Can you see it better this way? I think I was out of camera focus there. Bear with me. I'm still learning how to do this. Okay? So just keep going until you reach the end, okay? And don't forget to hide and lock your stitches. At the same time, you don't want it too tight or too loose. If you do it too tight, you'll see some what do you call it? It won't be straight. You'll see some curling on each squares, and then if you don't pull it too tight or tight enough, it won't be as secure. So if you turn it, so if, for example, we're done with the entire row, when you open it, this is how it would look like. So you still see some of the stitches. Okay. Now, if you were to ask me, just because I like this cardigan to look a little bit rugged, I prefer to be having this stitches showing because I like the colors. See, just like that. I like it that way, but it's your choice. You can either use the wrong side or you can choose the right side. There's really no right side. It's really up to you which one you want to use. Okay. So you choose over this. I know it's not exactly evenly done, but it still look nice after you're done connecting all of them. Okay. Or you can choose it a little bit more hidden, just like that. Your choice. Okay. Others would also do the mattress stitch, but I'm only going to show this type of stitch. I'll add a link on the description for other techniques that you could watch if you don't like this technique. Okay, let me pause this real quick. I'm going to take this off and then try to show you how to crochet it instead, okay? All right, so I'm back. This time we're going to try crocheting the ends or the sides of the squares that we're going to be connecting. So again, we're using this sage yarn to connect them, and for this project I'm going to be using a size 7 hook or a 4.5 millimeter hook. You can also use a 5 millimeter hook for this. So for this, you're just gonna grab the corner with your hook, the first 2 rows, yarn over and pull your yarn, and then make a chain. Okay, you're gonna reinsert it through the same first two rows. Yarn over, pull the yarn, and make one single crochet. Okay. And then for the succeeding rows, you're just gonna continue making single crochets. Let me make a few single crochets here, just so you'll see how it'll look like. To those who are not able to crochet and would just prefer to sew, you can do the whip stitch. But I tell you, it's worth learning how to crochet. I didn't know how to crochet before I started using the knitting machine, and I tell you, now I'm more addicted to using the doing crocheting. So and it really makes a big difference when you know how to crochet. Of course, only if you're interested. Okay. So as you can see, this is how it would look. Let me open this up. See, because I use a thicker yarn, you could really see the, let me focus this. You can really see the connection here, how they're attached. Okay. This is supposed to be the back part of the squares, the connected squares. This would be the front part. So as you can see, it's just kind of hidden. You're not really going to see that much of the yarn doing it that way and doing it by whip stitching it. So I really prefer having the stitches show, the stitches connecting the square show. I really like it this way, just because I want it to be more colorful, and I want to show how we are using squares as compared to just a regular knitted yarn. So if you prefer to do it my way, which is this way, make sure that your front side of the square is facing away from each other. If you prefer to have your stitches or your squares connected this way with the hidden stitches, not showing stitches, you want the front of your squares facing each other like this. Okay, so now that I prefer to do it this way, this would be my front, this would be my front, this would be my front, this would be my front. Okay, so all we need to do now is continue doing this until we reach the end, and I'm gonna pause this for now, and I'll come back when this side is done. Okay, all right, I'll be back. All right, we're back. So now this is the one I was working on prior to me pausing the video. So I've connected the two squares using my sage yarn. As you can see, it's a little bit deformed, but that's okay, because once we connect this side to the next pair, it won't show anymore. That deform, it's not going to be this deformed. Okay, I think the reason why it went that way is because we used a thicker yarn for connecting them. Okay, so let's hope that it will get better. Okay, so I also made another pair here. This would be the one that goes on top of your shoulder, and this would be the first layer, not layer, level, first row of your front left side. Okay, so since we decided that we're gonna use this as the front part of your cardigan, we're gonna have them face away from each other, like how we did it the first time. Now, to make sure that this gets connected or aligned properly, I'm gonna put like a needle through here, just to make sure they don't move too much and they're properly aligned. Same thing on this side. Sometimes with yarn, you know, they stretch and it's hard to get them together properly. This one's a bit too thick, so we'll see what we can do for that. Okay, so right here, another needle to hold them. Wait, there you go. So again, if you're gonna sew them together, you can start from whichever corner you want and start with the slip with the whip stitch. What's wrong with me today? Okay, and since I'm crocheting, I'm gonna start on this side. Okay, same thing, grab the corners, first 2 rows, yarn over, chain, make another single crochet, a single crochet on the same first 2 stitches, pull it a little bit, and then we can start with the next 2 opposite rows. Let me focus this a little bit more. Good. Next 2 opposing rows. All right, yarn over, pull, make a single crochet. Okay, next stitch, next 2 stitches, single crochet, and you go on until you reach the other end. So now after this, you're gonna have 4 squares connected. Okay, so in the end of this, at the end of this, you're gonna fasten off and leave a long tail for sewing later. Okay, not too long, maybe 12 inches, or maybe even 6 inches. Okay, all right, so it's gonna look that way until we reach the end. Okay, all right, so I'm gonna pause it right here. So you're gonna do it all the way to this end, fasten off, and leave a tail for sewing. Okay, I'll be back. All right, guys, I'm back. I have finished crocheting all the squares. They're all now connected. These are the 2 front panels. The first 4 rows are the front part, and then the last row, the first rows here on top would be for the shoulder part. That you would be connecting your back part on top of this. Okay, and it's kind of hard showing it this way. I know I showed it earlier on the diagram. I hope you can picture it. So now I also started connecting the back part, and as you know, I am only putting the flowers on the front, not on the back, only because I feel like if you're gonna lean against it, it's not gonna be comfortable. Okay, so let me see here. This would be the back part now. Okay, so the space between the 2 front panels would be aligned with this entire column here. So this is the top, this is the bottom. I have one more row to attach to this. Let me go get it. It's right here actually. So what I did first was connect the squares side by side until I have created until I have connected 5 squares. It's hard to control this with one hand. Okay, so I will be crocheting this now from this end to this end, and it would look like this. So I ended up allowing the crocheted parts to curl up like this because I liked how it looked. If you don't want this look, you can always use the back side, and you should also use a lighter yarn so it won't curl up like this. Okay, I just love the effect of this. That's why I did it this way. All right, so I will be back after I've connected this by crocheting, or whichever way you want to do it for your own project. And then I'll be back also to show you how to connect or attach the front end to the back part. Okay, so we're ready to connect the two front panels to the back panel. This is the top of the back panel, so we will be connecting it here. Okay, so what we can do is maybe connect them or attach them together temporarily with a needle or a pin. Let me pause this real quick. So I use needles to temporarily attach them to each other or connect the squares from the front panels to the back panel. Okay, same thing on this side. The important part is that your connections are aligned to each other, and the squares are aligned, the ends of the squares are aligned to each other. Okay, it's a good thing that this yarn is very stretchy, so you can always readjust if needed. All right, so you can either start crocheting or sewing them together. And then after this, I'm going to show you how to put on the sleeves. All right. Okay guys, so this is how it looks like now when the front panels are connected to the back panel. This is the first front panel. I've only connected it on the top part. So this is the part where it was connected right here. Remember, there's a row that's made for the shoulder part. So you need to fold it in half in order for the lower part to be even. Okay, so now that we've connected the top part, the next step would be to connect the side part. Okay, in order to do that, we need to make sure that we leave an open area for the sleeves. I'm making this for large size, so I could wear it. But if you have a smaller arm or larger arm, you can always adjust the space. Okay, I like my sleeves loose, so I really made it into this big opening. So I made the opening from top of the half of the shoulder square, and I added another square space. Okay, so this will be open like that. I put a marker right here so I know where to start crocheting or sewing the sides together. Okay, now if you feel like you want to leave a slit at the bottom so that when you're sitting down it's not pulling you or it's not too tight on you, you can leave this part open as well, the last two squares. Okay, so there's like a slit at the bottom. All right, I'm having a hard time showing this to you because my table is not that big. My desk is not that big to show this big project or this big jacket or cardigan, I should say. Okay, same thing on this side. For the left side, make sure, or right side, make sure that your shoulder square is folded in half, and then from there you can leave a space open from the top to an additional one pair of square. Okay, that would be an opening for your sleeve, and then you're gonna crochet or sew on this side all the way down if you don't want a slit. But if you want to leave a slit on the side, you're only gonna crochet up to this part. If you notice, and I haven't said anything about it, I ended up crocheting all of them instead of sewing them, and I ended up using a thicker yarn to crochet them together because I love the effect of this bunching together. It makes it more rugged. It gives more emphasis to the squares. Of course, not everyone has the same taste. If you don't like seeing this crochet stitches, you can always use the other side of your square. This is how it would look like. Okay. Or if you don't like the crochet stitches, you can always use the whip stitch, sewing, or blanket stitch even. All right.